I don't understand where people stock process.
When you told me that, I was like, I could never work at Chick Fil A. Like, not one customer would ever get served French fries. Like, the French fries would never make it out of the kitchen because I would just be eating them all day long. So I could never do that.
Forget theft; it's a food safety issue.
Yeah. All right, guys, welcome back to Jerk Block Talk. I'm Jason Fernandez. I'm here with Mr. Jason Barnes here at CrossFit Rife. So today, again, we're going to get off of the floor and we're going to talk about something that comes up quite a bit as far as like the affiliate blogs, just in general. And this is a little bit more on the business side, but something that you have to take into account when you're talking about building your staff and that thing, and that is hiring and firing. And the reason I brought Jason on the show today is, so Jason, how long have you been a member here?
4 years on the 8th this month.
So 4 years, so for a while. But so Jason also is a Chick Fil A operator. So I don't know if you can give like kind of how you started CrossFit and then kind of how long you've been an operator for Chick Fil A too.
Yeah, started CrossFit a lot like many of you. I was hanging out with some friends doing P90X and was on the beach one day and met a guy and he's like, hey, P90X is great, but you probably should try CrossFit. And I was like, well, what is it? So he told me a little bit about it. I was like, well, that sounds a little bit like what I'm doing in Muscle Confusion. And then I go home. One of my neighbors is like, you should try CrossFit. And I'm like, well, you tell me your version. He said the same thing. I was like, yeah, kind of similar to what I'm doing. Contacted Fern, pretty much figured out it's nothing what I was doing, and came in for an intro class, and it was nothing to what I was doing. I was humbled in the workout. I was humbled in the intro, but I was hooked for life. So I've been a member almost 4 years, and I love it. So
cool. And then how long have you had your restaurant for
Yeah,
Chick-fil-A?
I've been the owner-operator of Chick Fil A, Hey Good, for almost 6 years.
Okay.
And then prior to Chick Fil A, I was a teacher, soccer coach, and assistant principal for about 10 years.
Okay. So that gives you guys a little bit of context of why I thought bringing Jason on was important when we're talking about this subject in particular. So I've done a minimal amount of hiring and firing in my professional life, but not nearly to the extent that Jason has in the school system and in the restaurant industry. So just to let people know, like, how much of that you've done in the past 6 years.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, can we call it fast food?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fast food in general, and then talk about kind of how that Chick Fil A differs a little bit in that industry.
Yeah, so for almost 6 years, we have hired over 450 people. The industry average for turnover is about 200% a year of your staff. Chick Fil A's average is about 100%.
Can you imagine getting a whole new coaching staff twice a year? Twice a year.
It's a lot. And for us at our restaurant, we hover around the 80% mark on the turnover. The past couple of years, the landscape has shifted. People want things quicker than they've ever had before, whether it's promotions or raises, more money. People usually leave for what they think is a better opportunity or more money. This year alone, we've lost 92 people. Of those 92, 65 have left for life reasons. Mm-hmm. So going to the military, going to college, they decided that they wanted to do a different industry. So we've, for us, thankfully, we haven't had to terminate as many people this year as we have. Mm-hmm. But my first 2 years as an operator, I had to terminate a lot of people. And
just for reference, so for this year, you've had 92 people, or 92 person turnover, as you said, right?
Yeah.
How many people are on your payroll at any given point?
The most I had this year was 94 people are on the payroll. We were closed in August for an entire month for a remodel. So up until August, we had lost almost 75 people by that point. Again, when you hit a natural point in the year when people are already thinking about changing a job, going back to school, going to the military, and then with leading into that in August, again, perfect transition time, people said, all right, I'm going to do a different job. Or, again, join the military, go to college. Some got married, some want to travel the country. So this year alone was the most we've ever experienced at any given time.
And then, I don't know if you know this, what's the average age of your employee? Do you have any idea?
The average age right now is 19.
So a little bit younger than you would have in a CrossFit gym,
Yeah.
which I would imagine probably contributes to that high turnover rate as well.
And then in leadership, it's around 25, 26 years
So
old.
that's a little bit more indicative of what we would have in the CrossFit space. And then how many, so if you guys are not familiar with Chick Fil A, I think there's a lot of similarities as far as like culture and how they operate. And I've gotten to know Jason and a little bit more about Chick Fil A culture over the years. But how many leaders do you have on your team of that 92 or
I
whatever?
have 12 leaders right now of top leader. Then I have 8 kind of the first level leadership, a trainer type thing.
Yeah.
Assistant manager. So there's 8 of those.
Is your turnover there as high?
No.
Way lower.
Yeah, okay. I rarely lose more than 1 leader a year. And if I do, like this year, I actually lost 2 leaders this year. One, she got called by our home office in Atlanta to go down there and work a full-time job. So essentially, she took a step up. And then have another leader who was going to Virginia Wesleyan full-time, working for us full-time, and she really wants to focus on her schooling.
Yeah, so I think if you take out the bottom half of your workforce, the similarities become a lot greater when we're talking about a CrossFit gym and then Chick Fil A, what's going on there. So about the same age range, probably pretty similar turnover rate. Cool. So I just thought that was important so you guys have context. Like, again, I've known Jason for a long time, and like, what's the most people you've hired like in a 1 week period?
At the end of August, beginning of September, we had hired 32 people.
32 people. So more people we hired in 1 month than most people will hire maybe in their entire life as a gym owner. Okay, cool. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in here a little bit. So let's start with the hiring process. So in hiring 400 some odd people that you've hired in that time, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you really, really want to pay attention to, or what are some of the more important things to take into consideration when you're hiring people? And again, I think it's really important because like culture is a big part of Chick Fil A, and it should be a big part of your gym. And you as the leader. So I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so for me, it's always beginning with the end in mind. The vision for our restaurant is to be a restaurant dedicated to making a difference. And every team member, every leader in our restaurant knows, hey, we're here to make a difference in people's lives. It's life beyond a chicken sandwich. It can be as simple as smiling at someone. It can be as simple as showing up to somebody's birthday. It could be something more major, doing life together. There's a death in the family. There's something positive. There's a birthday. So beginning with the end in mind of selecting people who you think are going to fulfill your vision. That's the first thing. The second thing is we have 5 core values in our business. And we
have 5 too.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that people adhere to those 5 core values. So beginning with the end in mind, I want to find people that can fulfill my vision, and they also can take the core values and help us implement those. We create a job description like most people do, but where I think we're separate is we create a profile for someone. So if I want a marketing director, I have a profile of what this person has to have. It's not a job requirement, it's what I want them to possess. So for example, for me, I want someone that can take the vision and can run with it. I need somebody that can work well with me. I need someone, we tell everybody in the interview process, they're not going to come and talk to me for 3 hours. That's just something I want them to be able to solve problems on their own. So we create that profile for them. And you could say, isn't that more like expectations? It is. It's profile, it's expectations.
How much of that is like non-negotiable?
All of it. It's all non-negotiable.
I like it.
Period, the end.
I like it.
Everything is laid out up front for everyone because we don't want someone to come to us and go, well, I didn't know that.
And this is something I've alluded to it in a couple different videos. And again, I've known Jason for a long time. We do a lot of kind of business talking. We do a lot of leadership stuff together. We've sat in some masterminds together. The expectation up front, I literally just talked about this the other day in a video. The expectation up front is so important. Like, it will alleviate probably 50% of your problems.
Absolutely.
Right from the get-go.
Absolutely. And one thing in that, when we bring them in, we share the vision. And they get this ahead of time, so this isn't the first interview.
This is before the interview.
Yeah, they express interest. They go online for us. So the next part to this whole process would be you have to have a system, and it can't just be somebody walks into your gym and you go, oh yeah, let's grab a cup of coffee. Okay, and let's do it Friday, and today's Tuesday, and you gotta figure out what you're gonna do. You have to have a system in place. So for us, they walk in, they go online, whatever it is, they're all directed to the same spot, which is a website. They fill out an application. It goes, we have a talent director now. She recruits for us. She manages this entire process. Before her, it was all me that managed that process. So in that, they get the core values, they get the core value sheet, which has the vision and has our purpose and has our core values. It also has the goals we're trying to fulfill for the year. So that way, when they get there to that first interview, that they're going to be asked questions of how they can support this.
That I've never done, but now that you bring that up, that is probably something I will add to that. And if you're watching this and you're thinking like, well, that's different, like they have a different model, like because, most CrossFit gyms will hire kind of from within most of the time. The process is independent of like where your prospect comes from. Like the process should still be in place.
Absolutely.
Like just what's feeding your hiring pool is different than what maybe he's doing. But again, like if you're thinking like, well, it's different for us, like it's not. Don't fool yourself. It's not different. CrossFit gyms are not special. You should be going through a lot of these same best practices as huge billion-dollar industries do, because it is best practice.
Yeah, and you look at it and you go, y'all might hire from within. I think it's more important to have a system because you already know them, and it's so more important to, just like in any relationship, but especially somebody you already know them and they're your client. Now you're trying to move them over into this professional setting when now you're their boss. Those expectations have to be clear up front.
They have to draw that line in the sand because you have to be able to you have to be able to distinguish between friendship and employment, and they have to be able to distinguish between friendship and employment. And I've made this mistake in the past. If you don't set that tone from the first interaction that you've decided to go down this path, it's not going to end well. Like if you have not set the tone with either a professional email or have them submit some sort of request to you in writing, again, like we've had people that literally just forego the internship or the potential hiring process the minute they get the email, which is very professionally typed out, and be like, this is a job interview. And people are like, oh, I just wanted to come hang out at the gym. And you have to make that distinguish. It needs to be clearly delineated that this is a job. This is a job interview. These are the expectations for you. That's super cool. But I've never done the goals. That's a good.
Send it to them right away. That way they can see, is this going to be a spot for me? Because the biggest thing that you're trying to do in the entire interview process is, are they the right fit? There's some people that come in, they know you, they might be the smartest person, they might be the strongest person, they might be the coolest person to be around, but if they don't fit well with you and your team, and you might say, it's just me, great, that's even more important because now it's a team of two, and that culture is going to be implemented by that person when you're not there. Mm-hmm. So they have to be an extension of you, and they have to understand the culture from the get-go. If they don't, it's all bets are off the table. 6 months later, you're going to want to fire them, and it's usually all your fault because you did not start from the get-go with, here's my vision, here are my core values, here are my goals. Are you the right fit? And then we move forward into some type of training program.
Yeah, cool. So, I've talked about a lot of these things, and a lot of it I have learned from Jason and what they do because I've talked to him extensively about that because of his experience. But again, if you're looking back at some of the videos about like why you should be building your mission, your vision, all of those things, like they all feed together. It goes into the hiring process. It goes into the firing process as well. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about firing. So firing's not fun.
No.
Ever. No. In any scenario. Even when it's for cause.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not cool. So talk a little bit about your experience with firing.
Yeah, so if this is the issue that every business owner runs into, right? So you show up to work, somebody is either sent you a text, you got an email, or it's just the rumor mill going around. Something's happened and you have to research it. You don't want to call an attorney because maybe you can't afford one. And you just go, all right, I have to figure out what is going on. Well, this has happened to me hundreds of times, and I'll just give you an example that happened this year. I got a text message one morning in July that says, I won't use any names, such and such said this. So I went and I approached this person and I said, did you say this? It happened to be one of my top leaders in the restaurant. So I have 90 people. This was one of my top 2. And she says, I did not say that. And I said, interesting, because this person said they did. Well, then you get into a he said, she said battle. So I said, great. So for the next 4 days, 4 straight days, I did nothing but interview people. Got all the written statements down, documented everything. I did reach out to an attorney, a labor attorney, because this was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The issue with firing is you have to document everything, and everybody has to have the same exact treatment. So if I want to fire you and you work for me, I can't just walk and go, hey man, you're fired without doing an investigation if something's brought to me.
Because then you'll end up in a labor dispute.
You will.
And most people in CrossFit, that will probably not happen to you. And arguably because most people that are working with you are probably ignorant to the fact that they could sue you for labor purposes. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing those things.
It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. You treat them the right way because
it's professional.
Yeah, you don't want every he said, she said thing to turn into, all you got to do is tell a boss and they're going to fire somebody. So that prevents that. So research the whole situation. And the problem it all comes to with firing is you know these people. You know their family. They're working for you probably because they need money. They love your vision. They love your cause, but a lot of it, they need money. So when you have to fire someone, you're now telling their family, sorry, I'm going to prevent you from having income. So 4 days later, I have to sit down with this leader again, and I said, look, I've interviewed people for the last 4 days. Every single person's statement matches up but you. And I said, I'm going to give you one chance. This is your last chance to tell me, did you say this, yes or no? And she said no. I said, your services are no longer needed here. And that's the top leader. For us, it's a little easier to fire a team member. So in my organization, we have 4 levels. We have a team member, we have a trainer, which is a first level leader. I have a manager or several managers, and I have directors. So the team members generally will quit within the 2, 3, 4 week period, the first 2, 3, 4 weeks. Usually the job's way too hard. They had no idea we were going to be this busy. And they're like, holy cow, this is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Making chicken is not the easiest.
It's not the easiest thing in the world, and you're serving the public. So they usually quit. But as somebody stays on and they stay longer, you get to know them, those relationships are formed. And then, unfortunately, they put you in the situation. And I honestly, truly believe in my heart of hearts, as hard as it is to fire someone, it's more important to fire that person for what it says to the rest of your organization. So if I fire this person, yes, I'm telling them, no, you're no service no longer needed here. I'm sorry, you're not a fit. They move on. But the rest of your organization, whether it's 1, 2, 10, 100, or 10,000 goes, well, we can't do that.
Yeah. They're serious about the culture. Like, they're saying, like, no, oh, he's really serious about, like, not doing that or whatever it may be. And it just sets a precedent. And I think that speaks volumes to the culture, because then the culture will regulate itself.
Yes.
You know, then people are like, oh, like, you will legitimately get fired by that. Go ask the 9 people who were fired for that.
Yes.
So,
and if you go into this culture piece, whatever the culture is in your organization, whether you own a business or you're just like a manager in a crazy big corporation, you're a team leader in the military, and you say, I can't control, you're right, you can't control everything, but you can influence your team and your culture on that team. It's always down to whatever the leader is on that team. So if something's wrong, it's your fault as a leader, because you're usually allowing it to happen. Fern had me read a book last year. He said, hey, you really need to read this book. It talked all about how you as a leader, it's your responsibility to make sure people are doing the right thing, and when they're not, it is your fault because you're allowing it to happen.
Extreme ownership. We've talked about it before. If you haven't read it, I'm telling you, that book is gold.
It's gold, and it's so true, because I will honestly say this, I've never regretted firing anyone. And every time I fired someone, the culture in my organization has changed. This last person I terminated, and I don't usually take team members back. 6 former team members contacted me within 3 weeks and said, hey, can I come back and work for you? So, you know, it is my fault. That was all my fault for keeping her too long. It's completely my fault. I accept full responsibility for it. But it's one thing I will never have happen again. Because if I have that feeling in my heart that this person is the right fit, or they've done something detrimental to the team, I or my other top leaders have to take action to move forward so that they're not there.
The culture is what you tolerate.
Every time.
That's it. So let's go back to that little piece. I think probably the biggest, and even I've regretted this when I've not, you know, it's kind of the old saying is, what must be done eventually should be done now. Timing. Like, most people they just let it linger.
They do.
And they don't fire quickly enough. You know, it's like hire slowly, fire quickly. I mean, you could hire quickly, but as long as you're firing quickly for those that don't fit the culture, I think you're probably still in good shape.
This is what I see happen. In my organization, I meet with other Chick Fil A's at least 3 times a month. We do best practice visits to each other, and we also have another mastermind group that meets on the side. So I'm together with other owner-operators in our region almost four times a month. And what happens is we all do this is we go, all right, especially if you're a new business owner or an owner of a small business, you go, if I have to fire this person, guess who does the work? You do. Unless you have a really large organization or you've cross-trained people, you do it. So you go, oh, right now I love my lifestyle. I don't want to tweak it. All right, so I'm going to train them.
So if you're talking about, if we're going to put this in the context of a gym owner, like this is the scenario. I got to hire this coach, which means I have to pick up 25 classes a month. So then you rethink the right decision, which is to let said person go and pick up that 25 hours a month because you just don't want to do that work, which is always the wrong decision.
Always the wrong decision. And just like I tell people, I know most business owners in CrossFit do this, you cannot out-train a bad diet. And you cannot out-train a bad hire, all right? So if I hire somebody and I'm like,
bomb for you.
but I want to terminate him, and I go, no, I can't because, I need to be home for this, I need to do that, I have all these other things. So you're like, I'm just going to train them, and you put all this training around them and coach them, and you do all these things so that way you don't have to now take over. And in CrossFit's world, the 25 classes, for me, it would be 100-hour weeks in the restaurant, opening, closing, whatever. So you go, I'm going to train them. You cannot out-train a bad hire.
Still going to be a bad hire.
No matter what. Take the time, then terminate someone, put all that time you would to in training and coaching someone, hire somebody new, and your life will be miserable for about 2 weeks. It is. It'll be awful, and it might even be 4 weeks. But
it might be a couple months.
It might be a couple months.
But again, it's like it doesn't matter. I think it'd be easier if most people just don't accept that up front. If you're just like, all right, I'm going to fire this person. The next 5 or 6 months of my life is going to be really hectic, but that's far better than dealing with this crap for the next however long, ruining the culture of my gym, which is going to take a lot longer to fix than the 5 or 6 months it's going to take you to find a new coach. Yes. Like it's going to take a long time to weed out that cancerous problem within your organization.
Yeah, and I look at the people thing, just like you look at a debt. One of the debt philosophies is set a goal. So if you say, I'm going to pay off debt in 3 years, well, for whatever reason, people generally pay it off in a year to 2. Something just happens, all the momentum kicks in. It's the same thing when you hire or want to fire someone. Is you think this will take 6 months? It takes 2, right? You fire someone, and then all of a sudden, 2 months into it, this person is way better than the last person. It just clicks. Something's in there, and hopefully you do have a system around it. You have that hiring system, the training system, the developing system, and that way they can come in and do a great job. But if you don't, then you're really not going to hire someone or fire someone because you don't have anything else to bring into play. You don't have any systems around that.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever fired somebody for?
The weirdest thing I've ever... we have fired people, like we fired a guy for kissing a girl on the cheek when his fiance or her fiance was standing 3 feet away, and everybody just like looked around like, what just happened? And you watch, we have it on video, and you watch him. He walks up, so the girl's standing there, her fiance's right here, and this guy, he's an employee, all these are employees, are in the kitchen. He walks up and just kisses her on the cheek, and the whole kitchen just stops, and everybody just starts looking around like, what just happened? Yeah. So, and when I sat him down, I was like, can you tell me why I'm firing you? He goes, oh, I kissed such and such on the cheek. I'm like, why? And he's like, I don't know. And he's got up and left. It's like, okay. I mean, it was very, we have a lot of odd stories, but for me, that's by far the oddest one I've ever
So I actually want to talk, we talked about one not too long ago, and this one is like directly relates to a CrossFit gym. So like, you recently just fired somebody for eating a tomato.
Oh, yes.
So back in the prep room, like a tomato, like a cherry tomato.
Yeah, it was cherry tomato. So in our kitchen, everything is made fresh. We have a fresh produce truck that's brought every single day, and one of my leaders had walked in the back. The girl had stepped, thankfully, the prep table's about this big. She stepped to the side and took a tomato and ate it, and then was going to go back to work. And my leader was like, what are you doing? And she'd been with us like a couple years. Yeah. And she goes, was to throw it away anyway. And he's like, go home. Like, go home. And he was mad. So he comes out. I'm in the dining room in a meeting, and he told me what happened. I said, no, don't send her home. Terminate her. And so we terminate her. So then she starts, calling me and texting me, and she filed for unemployment, all this stuff. And we get to the unemployment hearing, and they're like, so Miss such and such, you ate a tomato in the kitchen, knowing it was wrong, thinking it was okay, and you feel like you were wrongfully terminated. And she said, yes. She goes, okay, that's all we need. I have all the information I need to make my ruling. And that was it. So, I don't understand where people's thought process.
When you told me that, I was like, I could never work at Chick Fil A. Like, not one customer would ever get served French fries. Like, the French fries would never make it out of the kitchen because I would just be eating them all day long. So I could never do that.
Forget theft; it's a food safety issue.
Yeah.
You can't eat.
So, but you said that afterwards. I was like, for a tomato, and then you kind of looked at me like I was an idiot because I kind of was, and you're like, it's stealing.
Stealing.
Right? So, and this is one where, again, and this kind of fits into the culture piece for you as a gym owner. And I do not know, this might be a bold statement, but this is probably 100% across the board. Every single gym owner, I think, has had some employee that has taken a Kill Cliff or a Progenix bar or something that wasn't theirs. Like, they just assumed it was okay because they work there, and they took that liberty to do that. And I think we just, in the community, because we're friends with these people, like, we kind of let that stuff slide. And I'm not saying you should fire people for drinking at Kill Cliff. But again, sometimes I think there's unintended consequences for, like, you not running your business. And we're talking, like, zoom out of this a little bit. We're talking, like, you not running your business like Chick Fil A will run their business. Yeah. Because a business is a business. And you're still considered a small business, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know what kind of revenue you guys do. Like, you should be running your business like that. If people are just taking from you, like, we can agree that that's probably, like, 10% of what they're actually doing. Like, one fraction that you saw is 10% of what they're actually taking from you.
Yeah.
And it might not be in the form of, like, Kill Cliff. It might be in the form of, like, the way they charge memberships or the way they collect personal training, stuff like that. So that's not the only time they've ever done that. No. So start adding that stuff up. But I think, again, it's one of those things where, like, if that's something you probably need to clean up in your business, like, you might be talking about, like, firing people. But I think, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I would recommend that if this is something you've been kind of letting slide for a little while, you probably need to lay a line in the sand and be like, all right, guys, so this has been happening, no more. If you do that, you'll be fired.
Yeah.
Like, does everybody understand what's happening here? Like, if you take a Kill Cliff, what will be the repercussions? Yeah. And if not everybody says, I'll be fired, then keep asking them the question until everybody's like, okay, I get it. Like, it's stealing. It's not cool anymore.
And on the character piece, like, it shouldn't stop with your employees. It also go to your clients. So if a client comes in and they just, if somebody's working on the vending machine and they take a Kill Cliff, and because
we have a vending machine because I wanted to get rid of that issue.
Or
put it on my tab.
Yeah, put it on my tab, and that's fine. Put it on tab. But there are people that they'll do that. And my thing is, if you're there and they're doing it, what are they doing when you're not there?
Yeah.
And that's what you really have to be worried about. It could be like I said, it could be a client or it could be an employee. And I think all this still goes back to hiring. And if you go back to, like, my biggest thing of hiring is you have to be the example. So whatever you do, you're giving permission to everybody else to let them do it. So you might say, well, I'm not stealing my own Kill Cliff. Yeah, but if you watch someone do it and you don't say anything, you've now just given them permission. Mm-hmm. And it's
not just them.
Everybody
who saw it.
Everyone that saw it.
You have 30 members in the gym, 30 people, and they're like, I guess we can just take those things, like.
And that's the thing about the culture. I mean, Chick Fil A and Crossfit, you said earlier, the cultures are very, very similar. People that want to get better, people who love serving other people, and we get this really deep bond with people. You're in the box doing all these great workouts together, and you form a bond, and you just like, I don't want to fire them. Again, it could be a client or it could be an employee. And the thing is, you have to. They put you in the situation for you to make that decision. And it's ultra important to make sure you stand by that character piece. Because again, it usually only takes one or two. And I've heard people say, like,
everybody falls in line after that.
Yeah, I've heard people say in my organization, if we fire them, we lose these 3 people. Okay, well,
just eliminated 3 more problems.
Exactly. Then you eliminated multiple problems. And I think you can't do it soon enough. Don't delay when it comes to that firing side.
Awesome. I think this is super useful stuff. I appreciate you. I know you're a busy guy, so thanks for doing this. And I think, so again, I've been around the community long enough to know that, like, where things align, and I've seen enough stuff in the affiliate owner forums and all that stuff where, like, people are dealing with this stuff every day. And hopefully this is just a reminder or something for you to kind of, like, buckle up and start keeping yourself accountable as the leader of the organization to hire well and then fire quickly when that person doesn't fit in. So.
And I would just close with this, like, most CrossFit gyms that I've been to, but especially here, so much time to spend in planning the workouts, planning recovery, making sure everything's perfect. And I would say put more time, if not double the time, in hiring your staff, because if you don't have a plan around that, if you don't have a system around your people, your business is going to fall apart. No matter how cool your gym is, anything you have, it's all about the people that you select, and you have to have a system around the people. And not only a system around hiring, but you have to have a development plan for your people once they get in there, so you can tell them how you start here and wherever your end goal is for that trainer or that coach or the employee, because the same thing you do with any member that comes in.
Yeah, cool. Well,